What's the haps? I'm John, aka Meroka, and welcome to Spiel. We are in the Copper Titan Gate this week, which is Beastie themed, which I feel like I haven't done Beasties in a little while, so Beasties it is. I'm bringing... You may see, probably won't use it too much, but I am bringing my my blazing pulsar with me. So just mainly for heating up purposes, because heating up is what needs doing for that. I have a video in the works that will be one of my new weapon demonstrations. I got a new weapon and it's level 5 and it's awesome and it's cool and it'll be fun to show off. So that'll be going up on Friday, I think. So if you want more Spiral Knights content coming your way on Friday, showing off some of the gunner update stuff. So that's cool. I realise at this point Chalk 3 has beaten me to the punch on most of the weapons. I think I guess he's been playing like utterly crazy, much more than I have, and he's got, seems like most of the stuff made already, so he's doing his demonstrations on his channel. But hey ho, I'm doing a different thing. I'm not trying to be Chalk 3, I'm trying to be someone else. I'm trying to be me. So that's the thing. Other stuff to look out for on my channel whilst we're talking about channel stuff. Everybody else seems to have made this announcement, so I figure why not, might as well join the crowd. If you enjoy the Minecraft type stuffs, there's new Minecraft type stuffs coming out soon, which is to say on the Strangeland server we recently did a UHC, an ultra hardcore big PvP type event, if you're not familiar with those. It was a lot of fun. I cannot divulge any details, save to say that videos on that will be coming out in the near future. I forget the exact dates, before the end of the year I think is a good rough approximate estimation to give you on that one. So look forward to that, some collaborative PvP type stuff. I don't know if I just made the right choice there. I did! Woo! Excellent, right choice! Woo! That was a rather fortunate right choice. And I forget, what is it, M for? No, M is missions. What is map? Is it B? B is map. Yeah, I guess you can... No, you can't actually see the details there. You can't bring it up on that map, so I have no idea. So this one is same again. I want to break the blocks, but not the ghost blocks. Yeah, alrighty. Oh, excuse me. I feel I may be coming down with something this wintry period. Which is not good, not good. I'm spluttering a lot. At any rate, let's take a look at some Spiral Knights news. Yeah! I really shouldn't have done the jingle because I ain't got much. There ain't any. Ooh. Some strange 4-bar lag there. My connection shows solid, but that was a bit strange. Yeah, not much to announce. I would estimate, because it is coming up to that time of year, that Winterfest will be upon us. Normally it's earlier in the year than this. Speculation suggests that it's probably been delayed a little bit due to the gunner update to let people get their teeth sunk into that one. So yeah, they probably want to give it a couple of weeks between the gunner update and putting out the Winterfest update, which is fair enough. It just means that we'll be getting the update slightly later on in the year this year. One would assume it's still coming. So yeah, Winterfest coming up probably today, by all reasonable estimations. If they leave it till next week, well, it'll be Christmas Eve next week, so it's probably a little late to leave it. I don't think that, you know, 3 Rings are going to be wanting to be working on Christmas Eve in the event of any technical issues, as well as, you know, just straight up to deploy the patch. And people probably want to get into stuff a little bit before Christmas period starts, you know. So yeah, I think it'll be this week. So as always, if it is this week, I will have a video on it, and you will see it, and I'll do my patch notes and whatnot later today, or indeed, well, that video may well be up by the time that you see this. So that'll be some weird wibbly wobbly timey wimey dilemma thing, and that would be awesome. Right, so I need to find some switches. There'll be some switches hidden around here, presumably under something. There we go. That's a switch. So let's get into some questions and topics and things. That's the thing we do around here. This is a talk show about talking about things, and one of the things I talk about is the things that people ask me about. With Season 3 of this, I'm sort of aiming to go towards more intellectual discussions of interesting things in the world these days, and If you have any questions on such matters, leave them in the comments below and I will get to them in a video near you in the near future. So obviously last week I did my gaming awards ceremony thing, which was cool, but unfortunately obviously I ended up not prompting you to ask me questions just by the way that video went, and ultimately I have not received many topics to talk about, I don't think. So I've got a few on the back burner from previous weeks. I skipped over one the previous week, and I've got one that I've been hoarding from Skyscythe for this new format show since like episode 90, which is my current rate of work, somewhere around 4 months ago, I guess. So I've been hanging on to this one for a little while, but it's kind of a good topic and I want to talk about it. So let's kick things off with that ancient Skyscythe question, which is Solar Roadways. I admit he doesn't particularly ask a question. I have a topic for a potentially future Spiel, and I think it's one of those what the hell is this world coming to things. The video explains it and what's wrong with it. Enjoy, PS, lots of laughs, and he links to a YouTube video by a name some people may be familiar with. I had heard of the chap before, because he's somewhere around 300 subscribers. He's reasonably noteworthy. He's not quite PewDiePie, but he's pretty big. I think he makes his living off of YouTube, if nothing else. He is Thunderfoot. Thunderfoot kind of makes his... It's mostly... Oh, there was my switch. I didn't even see I pressed it. He does mostly kind of vlogging type stuff where he... I can't say I particularly care for him. His videos are generally fairly interesting, but most of the time... Hey, that gate changed from compound to compound. Most of the time, it's usually debunking outlandish claims or poking fun at people and things, and just generally driving his traffic out of sensationalist type stuff, which, to be fair, is how everything works these days. Most people are getting their living out of sensationalism on the internet these days. Just ask BuzzFeed, amongst many others. So yeah. So basically, Solar Roadways. If you don't subscribe to Thunderfoot, or you missed anything to do with Solar Roadways, it's popped up a few times over the last few years, I guess. There is a company in the US which is trying to develop a technology called their company is Solar Roadways, and that is what they're making. They're trying to make a road surface, a smart road surface, as it were, out of, well, solar panels. I need to heat up a thing, don't I? Can I heat my thing? Blazing Pulsar. Heat the thing. Yay, heat bonus. That's cool. I like that. So yeah, they're trying to make a solar panel-based roadway with what amounts to, well, it's basically LEDs in it, and potentially a heating system in it, such that it can absorb energy through the solar panels during the day, and it can then light up the LEDs to provide information, to provide road markings, and use the heating systems within it to melt snow and ice, for many roads get covered in snow and ice in the winter, and that's a thing that would be potentially required in a great number of regions. And on the surface of it, it sounds pretty cool. They put out an Indiegogo campaign a while back. I believe it is, possibly still to this date, one of the most successful Indiegogo campaigns on Indiegogo, which is obviously just a cheap knockoff of Kickstarter. Indiegogo's thing is that they tend to allow campaigns that Kickstarter would otherwise deny. Indiegogo pretty much just lets everything go. They've also got the feature, and I know a lot of people like this, is that if you don't hit your goal, you still get the money, which that's a bit... not so sure about that one. The idea of Kickstarter is, you know, if you don't hit your goal, you don't get your money. And there's a sort of a degree of confidence that if the project creator hits their goal, you know, you still get stuff. If the project creator hits their goal, you get stuff. If they don't hit their goal, they don't get to make their project. Nobody loses out. With this, it's like, oh, we wanted $1 million, but we only raised 50,000. Oh well, we don't have enough money remotely to make this project viable, but here's $50,000 anyway. It's like, well, what are you going to do with that? Where are you going to get the rest of your money from? You just walked off with 50,000 of people's money. So, well, I'm not a big fan of Indiegogo in that regard. If anybody wants to call Kickstarter a scam, Indiegogo and its ilk are way more so, I would have said. They're not particularly the greatest of things. At any rate, Indiegogo was their chosen platform. They aimed for 1 million. They raised 2.2 million, I think, in the end. And all this for developing prototypes for their thing. And, well, honestly, when you just do the numbers, it kind of doesn't... Most of it doesn't add up. It's, let's take a pill. Much of the Thunderfoot video was specifically dedicated to debunking numbers, and it was like many of the claims that, like, oh, this can generate enough, these solar roadways, if you covered America in it, would be enough to generate enough power to power America several times over, and all our energy needs would be dealt with quickly and easily. And, well, by his numbers, not necessarily true. He had a very compelling argument, which he held a sheet of paper up and said that this is a white sheet of paper. If the energy hits the sheet of paper, that is the most energy that could be reflected. Because it's white, it reflects almost all light. So light that hits the sheet of paper will be reflected. And, you know, that's... If your solar roadway was completely white, that is the most light energy that could possibly be absorbed by it. The amount that you're currently seeing reflected into your eyes, because it is white, is the amount that a solar panel could potentially absorb. And then went on into sort of various efficiencies of things, and sort of ended up cutting out sections of the paper, saying, oh, well, this is wasted, this much is wasted, this much is wasted. And by the time you got to the end of it, it's like there's a very tiny fraction of it would actually generate energy. But at the same time, you know, we're still pushing to use solar energy. From my perspective, it's like, if covering most of America's roadways, which is quite a significant amount of solar panels, would not generate, by his argument, even enough power to power the LEDs that do a white line down the middle of the road, or barely enough power to do that, then why are we pushing solar as a technology anyway? Why? It almost seems like a case to dismiss solar panels in their entirety. If it would barely light up a white line down the middle of the road, why are we looking to use it for other purposes? It seems like it's almost fairly dismissive of the technology as a whole. And of course, as with all technologies, efficiencies and things will improve. I think that's one of the major directions solar is trying to improve. As people try to develop better technology, they're trying to make more efficient solar panels that waste less of the sun's energy. That more of the light energy that lands on a solar panel is improved. And certainly as that goes along, that sort of thing could potentially be integrated into this kind of technology, and it would be less inefficient, which would certainly improve things. I don't know, like I say, he makes a very compelling argument, but, well, that's kind of his job. Like I say, this is what Thunderfoot does. He goes around finding outlandish claims and discussing them at length in a fairly sensationalist manner. So, for all that he is very silver-tongued, I would still say take it with a pinch of salt. It's kind of his job to blow things up and point and laugh at them. And that is exactly what he's done here. I think there's some reasonable claims to be made for the solar panels. I do think there's a lot of work that would be needed to be done. I don't think it's a eternally unviable proposition. I think it is a presently probably fairly unviable proposition. With current technology, it's probably not great. The cost of developing it is outlandishly expensive. They've put some of the costs of their prototypes on their website, and it's like, well, the sheer cost of actually manufacturing the things and then trying to roll it out across America, we're talking ridiculous sums of money. There's one of the claims he makes, and I can't quite follow where this comes from, but at one point he discusses the cost of running the solar panels. He's like, oh yes, in order to run the solar panels would cost $50 trillion a year or something ridiculous. Or 20 trillion maybe. Right order of magnitude, might be the wrong figure. Which is a lot of money. I think that's mostly if you were to try and power more LEDs on it than just the basics. I think it's basically saying these things only have enough power to power basically just a white line down the middle of the road. And if you actually wanted to do anything fancy with the lights, put signs, put extra things on it, put anything interesting with the LEDs, which is part of what they kind of seem to be gunning towards. It's what they're saying, hey, look what fancy things we can do with these roads. Much of that would require extra LEDs and extra power, and so the power to run these extra roads, if they want to do that, would be prohibitively expensive. Several times the national debt kind of expensive, that kind of field. So that's not really a particularly viable option, but again, that seemed more like a novelty optional extra than a serious claim particularly. It was sort of, we could do this, maybe. It'd be nice to do this, not, we absolutely have to have this, this is integral to running it. I don't know, it's a very strange and interesting topic. I mean, roads are interesting insofar as, when you consider how many other areas of the world we do advance, roads and transportation generally do seem to be, broadly speaking, across the board, behind every other aspect of our daily lives. You look at, like I say, roads haven't changed in decades. And, you know, we've got smartphones, we've got computers, we've got all the fancy technology, and for whatever reason we ain't done much with roads. I think if you go into Wikipedia, as I have done, and look up sort of the solar roadways and intelligent road systems is basically what it is. There's a lot of other improvements in the field which actually do sound a lot more interesting. Ouch, yeah, I knew I was going to get hit by that. I am probably going to die here, I think. For there are bunnies everywhere. The bunnies will kill me. Basically, I think more along the lines of what Google's doing with like the self-drive cars, that type of thing is probably more interesting in terms of roadways. When you look at Platoons, are what they call them, Platoons on the roads, would basically be a technology to allow a group of cars to, if they're equipped with the technology for it, to link up and drive together as a group, or a platoon if you will. Which actually sounds kind of interesting. So the idea behind that is you drive a series of metal magnetic spikes into the middle of the road, so that the car, as it goes past, would have a magnet sensor on the side of it that would pick up on that and be like, oh, I'm on a road, this has been equipped for this, and it could sort of, I presume you'd have kind of a Wi-Fi kind of system in there that would then say, okay, here's your signals on how to connect. So you use a wireless signal built into the boxes along the road, I suppose, you distribute them evenly. It would present signals to the cars would presumably be able to interconnect and talk, and you get a group of, I think the idea is between 8 and 25 cars could link. So the idea is sort of reducing congestion during commutes, promoting better fuel efficiency, reducing accidents. Though these things seem a lot better equipped for improving the state of our roads, and it's kind of an interesting idea, but... And when you look at the stuff Google's doing, like with these self-drive cars, it's like, they're really interesting, and it's like, they've never had an accident yet, when you compare that to how many accidents, you know, humans have. People are like, oh, I wouldn't trust a robot, and I was like, you sure? I would trust a robot more than I would trust a human driver to drive safely, jeez. I don't know what you're on, but I think the robots are probably smarter than the people. Especially around here, Bradford's reckless driving. It's ridiculous. I've seen people go the wrong way around roundabouts in Bradford. Good lord. At top speed as well. It's just ridiculous around here. So yeah, a system that would say, hey everybody, okay, these are all linked together, and we're all going to drive at the same speed, at a standard distance apart, and we're all going to get there safely and on time together. That's cool. I don't think you'd want to go down quite the iRobot kind of route, where the car just takes over and says, no, you are not allowed to drive, I am driving now. I do think perhaps there should be sort of some system in place so that humans can take over where necessary. So, in case of emergency, if something's happening, you should be able to go, okay, disable this system, perhaps. At the same time, I don't know, how do you regulate that so you just don't get complete poltroons on the road that are just like, I'm going to disable this because I want to drive. No, 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 I'm leaving the platoon. Because you know people would do that. They'd be like, I want to drive. I don't see why robots should be driving. I want to drive this thing. Which sort of defeats the point, certainly. And you know people would do that. People would be like, I don't want to let the robot drive. I want to drive for myself. And she's like, well, you can't be trusted and you don't need to drive. Stop. Don't be ridiculous. So I don't know how you would establish when was a appropriate and reasonable time to relinquish control to the driver, and I would say it should just be at all times, but at the same time I also don't think people could be trusted to do that. So it's a tricky and thorny issue to resolve, I would have said. So yeah, intelligent roads. Maybe not solar roadways, but there's definitely more interesting options out there in the world, and I think they are worth looking into. Another question, because I don't know. I'm not well versed in the intricate science enough to go into solar roadways in any greater depth than that, I don't think. So yeah, I will probably link Thunderfoot's video in the description, just so you got some context to what I'm talking about there. I'm not convinced he's completely reasonable and unbiased, because obviously he's just trying to make a living out of sensationalism on YouTube, so I don't think he's the best person to be talking about it. But yeah, let's do another question from the name that I can never. Alivi, was it? I think Alivi. I found an interesting topic: de-extinction. It sounds like it could be a good idea for some animals. Personally, I don't think it should be done for all, like mammoths, he says. Or she says, I don't know. This is the internet. I tend to assume male gender for people, but I could very well be wrong. Demographics say my audience is like 90 to 95% male, so it's probably a pretty reasonable assumption. It's just a bad habit I probably shouldn't be in. So yeah, they ask about a de-extinction. This comes presumably in light of, I do recall seeing some articles recently. There was, at some point in recent history, they discovered a extremely well-preserved mammoth in a glacier somewhere. That was, you know, when they cut into it, the stuff that came out of it was pretty much just blood. It was like, oh, look, here's a mammoth. Cut it open and blood comes out. It's like, oh, this is really well preserved. This is crazy well preserved. So you basically have mammoth DNA in the form of blood there. And, well, at that point, people are sort of looking into, well, can we use this to clone one? Mammoths are obviously already extinct, but could one clone? We have similar animals in the form of elephants in the world these days. Could you take the DNA and do effectively something like Dolly the sheep, which is obviously the first cloned animal that survived to any particular great long age? And could we do that something similar with an elephant? Could we take the mammoth DNA, create basically a mammoth embryo, put it in an elephant, and have the elephant carry the young, and basically we could recreate mammoths. The problems inherent in that are that, well, mammoths are, as far as our understanding of them goes, very much a pack animal, so to be the only mammoth in the world would be... hang on, where am I in this one? Is this a jelly garden? Have I come into the wrong place with have I come to a place that needs... If this is a jelly garden, I'm going to be... No, Stone Grove. I'm okay. That's fine. Though it is jellies. Okay, Polaris it is then. Okay. So yeah, like I say, pack animals, so being the only mammoth in the world would be a terribly lonely existence to inflict on an animal, and there's certainly ethical concerns there. And one of the questions was posed is like, why would we be doing this? Just because it's cool to have a mammoth? I don't know that that's necessarily the case. Science goes way beyond, oh, this would be cool to have. It would be an interesting and fascinating creature to study. There are parts of ecosystems that, you know, initially would have been dependent on mammoths. The ecosystems are generally dependent on the creatures within it. So I suppose many of those will then have sort of, you know, evolved, as it were, to not have mammoths in it, and they've probably become accustomed to them not being there, so it might be strange to introduce it back into an ecosystem as well. It might cause strange changes that could not be anticipated. I think it would be an interesting project, certainly. The other issue is then that would cause a great deal of stress for the elephant, and the elephant's pack community as well, for they're very fairly social animals as well, so to have an elephant, to force an elephant to bear the child of another species would also be a strange and unusual thing to do to an elephant, and probably not terribly ethically great either. There's another kind of concern in that matter. I'm not sure how many other animals there are that you could do that to. I think there are a few other suggestions out there. There's a few other... I forget the names of any specifics at this moment, but I think there are a few other species that scientists have said, yeah, they could potentially do something with these. Oh, hey, we've got stuff down there. Let's check if that's worth it. Nope. That's not going to be worth it. You can get to that bit later on, and you can open it before you get into it, because otherwise you have to pay energy to get into it. And yeah, If you don't want to pay the energy, you can check, see if there's anything good. If there's a spark of life, I might have opened it. It's one of these is a switch as well, and I forget which one. That one! Switch found. Secret switch. That one's always a fun one. So halfway through this level, there's a gate, and you're just like, where is the switch this? I have not passed any switches. This one is totally secret and awesome. Secret switch. So yeah, De-extinction comes with a great many primarily ethical concerns. I think from a scientific standpoint, it certainly would be interesting to discover an entirely new species, and it would be extremely useful to us to, you know, further our understanding and development of cloning, surely as well, and apply that to other creatures. The problem with cloning is, of course, that in many cases it does not work out as intended. I think Dolly the sheep was extremely lucky and successful that it worked. But I think for every instance you can find of, hey, this worked, we managed to actually clone an animal, there are many more instances where it didn't work. There are a lot of clones that come out deformed or just don't live very long, and obviously the then ethical concerns in that is that right to bring into this world an animal that's horribly deformed and only going to live a short while, especially to put an animal like an elephant through the process of carrying that child, and then to have that child just be effectively a failed experiment, and like, oh well, that didn't work. That's not a particularly great way to go about things either. Here's the secret room. I got secret treasures. No. Secret treasures. Mostly money. Or pretty much entirely money, but hey! Secret money! Secret money is awesome. I can probably snag some money out of these leaves as well. Gotta pay for them recipes, you know. Them recipes aren't cheap. There we go. A few pennies in my pockets. So, yeah, I probably don't have a whole lot more to say on De-extinction. I do think it is a thorny ethical issue. And I think perhaps working on... I mean, it does seem like... I don't know... Why do laboratories seem to have no qualms dealing with mice? Is it because they are less intelligent creatures, I suppose? I mean, again, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy would take issue with that. But, yeah, I suppose we're kind of... Most experimentation gets done on mice and rats and things. I suppose if one could sort of perfect the cloning technology with mice and rats and whatnot, one could maybe scale it up to larger animals, and then at a later date we're like, okay, we can be pretty certain, it's the, you know, this is going to be like, if we can get to a point where we're like, oh yeah, cloning is like 80-90% successful, see, there's that gate I have to pay to get through, and I'm not going to pay to get through it, because I already know what's through there, nothing worthwhile. Yeah, if we can get to a point where cloning is, you know, reasonably, got a reasonably high degree of success, then more complex, larger creatures that would be more impacted by the process of cloning, like an elephant, you could then say, oh, well, you know, we've got a 90% chance this is going to work with a mammoth. Maybe that's the point at which we could start doing that. Of course, the problem with that is then you're getting genetically identical things as well. I mean, if you were to clone 2 mammoths, they would be, well, clones of the first mammoth. We only have 1 mammoth sample, so we're only going to have that 1 mammoth to clone. So there's not going to be any genetic diversity in amongst it. So even if you had 2 mammoths and they both came out okay, you couldn't have them breed and make children to make more mammoths because they would be, well, genetically the same, wouldn't they? I guess they could have kids, but it probably would be very ill-advised. Basically going down the line of incest there, but even more so. It's not even siblings, it's like they're exactly the same. The way genetics works is the child probably wouldn't be identical, would it? Oh, it might be. I'm not actually sure. My understanding of genetics is not incredible. I remember doing it in GCSE biology, but that's over 10 years ago at this point. My genetics understanding is somewhat diminished in the last 10 years. So yeah, if you think about again a wonderful example, and I used this I used this not so long ago, and I like being able to use this as an example because it's a great example. Is Red Dwarf did a episode called Rimmer Worlds, in which Rimmer went through a wormhole, and we discussed this in the wormhole thing. But more interesting than that, the upshot of which was that, for whatever reason, the pods that Rimmer went through had cloning technology, and his plan when he landed on the world, so that he would not be alone for 600 years, was to clone himself so that he would have a companion. and he cloned many versions of himself, and they were all identical to himself, including the women, which was really creepy and weird, and very, very bizarre. But yes, that was what he did. And basically he created an entire planet of himself. So that's what Red Dwarf says will happen when you create an entire race of clones, because the clones are breeding. Because I don't know. I don't know if Red Dwarf is scientific fact. One might even call it a work of scientific fiction. Science fiction, perhaps. So maybe that one should be taken with a pinch of salt. I don't know. I'm not sure how much research they did before that, but at the same time, my research into this was maybe not entirely extensive either, so... Hey ho! Let's head on down. Let's go see what Basil has for us. I am hoping he has a wildfire recipe for me, because I do not have the wildfire recipe. I'm heating this thing up, but I don't have the wildfire recipe yet. If anybody wants to sell me that for 25,000 crowns, I will happily buy it from you for cost, or even at a small markup. But the auction house at the minute for wildfire recipes is like 50 to 80,000 crowns. It's like, no, I'm not going to pay 2 to 3 times the standard price for the recipe. I'll pay maybe 30,000, but geez, no, let's not go 50,000. That's just silly talk. Hello, Basil. Basil, give me recipes. Do you have a wildfire? You have bugger all, actually, quite frankly. There's a Mega Tundrus recipe. That would probably sell for a bit, I think. Surely. I don't know. I'll take it. I could probably make a little bit on that. There's some money. Okay, we're good. Right, so that will bring us to the end rather nicely, so thank you very much for watching. If you have further questions, comments, suggestions for topics, please leave them in the comments below. Or you can message me on Twitter, where I am at Meroka_BM, so follow me there. Do not forget to check out my Patreon campaign, which will be linked in the outro in just a hot second. And yeah, thank you very much for watching. I've been Meroka, this has been Spiel, and I will see you next time.